Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Auto Amateur. In this episode, we're doing more interior mods. Let's get straight to it. Welcome back, guys. Yes, so more interior mods. In the last video, you saw me retrofit the sports chrono clock into the dashboard. I bought a black unit on eBay. I put a yellow Tach face on it. I got the new trim, put it in. So now, with my yellow brakes and my yellow sports chrono clock, I wanted to add some more yellow without going completely overboard into the cabin. And so I bought myself an aftermarket Tach face. The quality is exceptional. I've used this brand before, got it from eBay. I actually bought the whole instrument cluster, but I stopped short of putting all of the faces in because I think, and Nick Murray will back me up on this, less is more when it comes to Porsches. And I know I break that rule time to time, especially with carbon fiber. But in this case, I think I've got the balance about right. I now have a yellow Tach face in the middle, and this video is all about the DIY and how to do it yourself if you're interested. So let's just get the job going. Now, before you get started, it's a good idea to pull your steering wheel out as far as you can to give yourself maximum space. You don't need to remove the steering wheel. What you do need to do is take out these two little pieces of trim from the left-hand side. You've got the ignition trim, and then you've got this air vent. Both of them just require a trim tool, a little bit of pressure. This air vent, a little bit more force than the trim piece below it. And this you can actually hang out over the side. Once you've got those two trim pieces out, it's then onto the instrument cluster surround. Be really careful with this piece of plastic. It's relatively thin. Make sure that you're sort of applying pressure evenly around the full edge, top and bottom, and then it comes out really quite nicely. But again, just be very careful with this piece because it is prone to cracking and particularly in the bottom part of the trim piece. Next up, you've got 4 screws to remove. The T25s here in this case, my first generation 991, I think they were actually T27s. Either way, 4 screws to remove. I'm using a magnetic tool here to make sure that I don't drop any of these screws inside the dash. That would be a bit of a pain. If you're lucky, they might just fall into the steering column casing and then you can get them out, but just be very careful how you take those screws out because you don't want to drop them and lose them. Now you can actually release the instrument cluster itself. Be really careful not to scratch it. You could probably use a microfiber towel here just to protect the lenses. There are 2 wiring harnesses that need to be released, one on the right, one on the left. The one on the right is a little trickier. It's much smaller, and the trim, the clip that releases it is on the bottom, is a little harder to release. This bigger clip here on the left-hand side is much easier to pull out. Now, to prep for dismantling the instrument cluster, I'm just taking photos here of where the needles sit, where the hands sit on each of the different parts of the instrument cluster. I'm actually only going to replace the center Tach face here, but I just wanted a good, accurate before shot of everything before I then start fiddling. Now, around the edge of the instrument cluster, there are about a dozen little plastic clips that hold everything into place, in addition to the screws that are on the back, which we'll remove afterwards. This is a little bit tricky, and so what I'm using is some Post-it notes just folded up and inserted underneath the clips so that when I'm ready to start removing the plastic trim around the edge, they all come off at the same time. If you don't do this, you find yourself going round and round in circles where you release a couple of clips on one side, and then as you work your way around to the next side, those clips actually get pushed back into place. So next up, there are about 9 or 10 screws on the back of the instrument cluster to release. They're all relatively small. I think I have a T6 or a T8 screw here, screwdriver. Some of the screws are longer than others, so just be mindful of which ones go where. But they all come out relatively easy, and then it's just a matter of simply and carefully pulling off the front of the instrument cluster. So now we're ready to remove the needle. Just again, remember exactly where the needle is before you pull it off. And now we're going to take off the Tach face. Now this is relatively straightforward. On some instrument clusters, the Tach face just comes straight off. On others, the factory uses a little bit of glue just to keep one or two of the edges tacked down. On this one, this particular one in my car, there was indeed a little bit of glue on the underneath, which just required a little bit of pressure to pull it off. But it came off undamaged, and now I can put on the new Tach face. And you'll see for this new Tach face, it doesn't quite sit flush. But once you put the instrument cluster lenses back on, everything gets held down into position perfectly. So I'm not too worried about that here. Now I can put the needle back in. Now in Tommy L. Garage's video, he does a great job of showing you how to put this needle back. You want to just loosely put it back into position first until you can feel where the needle drops and sits at the bottom. And then you essentially want to just move the needle a little higher and then push it back into place. And then just test it. If there is a little bit of resistance as you're pushing the needle up and back down again, you've got it in the right place. If there's no resistance, then you probably put it in too low and it's not going to work properly. But if it doesn't work first time, it's okay. You can go back, pull out the needle and try again. Now we're just going to put everything back together and go put it back in the car. Reinstalling the vise is literally just going in reverse, the process steps that you've already followed. Everything should just go straight back in, put in the 4 screws, instrument cluster, the 2 pieces of trim, and then you're good to go.
Well, that's it for another video, guys. What do you think? Do you like the Tach face? Do you think I've gone too far? Let me just put something else on the table. I'm also considering 2 more upgrades, or 2 more changes, should I say, depending on your point of view. One is to get my steering wheel refurbished. And I've done this before with a company called Craft Customs in Texas. In fact, they refurbished the steering wheel in my first 991, the .1. I went for a red notch at the top with red deviated stitching. In the 996, I did the exact same thing, but with blue thread and blue leather. So now for this one, I'm thinking, of course, yellow deviated stitching to match the yellow chrono and the Tach face. Maybe a yellow notch on top. Maybe not, I'm not sure. Probably, but then also potentially yellow seat belts. And then that's it with the yellow. Yellow seat belt, sports chrono, Tach face, steering wheel deviated stitching, and the calipers. That's it with the yellow. That's it with the yellow. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Anyway, thanks again for checking out the video. More content coming soon. Get out and drive, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you soon. Bye.